Hey, what is up, everybody? We are live from Monticello High School, and this is the Stang Station Show, otherwise known as Triple S. Today, on episode 7, a very special episode, we are missing my co-host here, Chris, so we brought in first ever faculty member, Mr. Barron.
I'm honored to be here.
Yes, and on Talkback today, we have Mr. Glover, our producer.
Yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube, you won't see me, but if you're listening, hello.
All right, so me and Mr. Barron have both brought in 2 topics today to talk about. I'm going to go to Mr. Barron first, ask him what his topic is.
So one of my topics is last week, Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, the first time it ever went to a musician. And there's been some controversy in the field of whether Bob Dylan, musician, songwriter, qualifies for the prize in literature.
I don't know. I think he does. I think he 100% does qualify for different reasons. One reason being that his music and his songwriting has actually influenced like a huge number of other artists. And it's not just his music, really. Like, you know, famous example, All Along the Watchtower. He wrote that song and like his version's all right. But then Mr. Jimi Hendrix did it, you know, and like blew it out of the water, made an amazing cover. And it happened with like other artists. Every artist, I think, has covered one of his songs, if not just to practice, to learn the instrument, or to in a professional way, you know?
So playing devil's advocate, obviously you could take that description of Bob Dylan and his influence and apply it to many other people, you know, going farther back.
Sure.
So the Nobel Prize has been around 100, 120 years. Why then, like, why Bob Dylan first? Is it because he's old and he's, you know, not maybe as relevant as he used to be? So is it like at the Academy Awards, they always give like the Lifetime Achievement Award. So is this like a Lifetime Achievement Nobel Prize to Bob Dylan for being the voice of a generation, for writing amazing music and songs? Or is it, you know, how is it in 2016 Bob Dylan wins this and not in 1966 or 1976 when maybe he was more relevant?
I don't know. Maybe it's just because they wanted to change it up, and they were like sitting in their meeting of Nobel people, and they were saying, what can we do? And then maybe there weren't any good writers or something this year, and they were like, well, why don't we try something out, try something new? I don't know. But also, I was thinking another thing Bob Dylan really did was he revived the folk music scene in America, because like the British invasion had happened with the Beatles and all those artists coming in, and then Bob Dylan kind of appeared, and like there was just kind of like a renaissance of folk music after Bob Dylan, and he has probably influenced all singer-songwriters now, you know. I don't
Mr. Glover?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the idea that writing songs, just the artistry and the procedure of writing a song definitely has artistic merit on the same level as writing a novel, without a doubt. So just when you think about the argument, is it obviously, I think you've mentioned that why Bob Dylan, why now, and I think that's a great point. But yeah, I think that maybe it's just we've gotten to a point now where we're starting to kind of change our ideas of what's acceptable for that category. But Bob Dylan's as good as anyone that has ever done it. So I think that it's cool that we're moving into that. You know, we're at a place now where people can win as songwriters. And Bob Dylan, you know, he's Bob Dylan. He's absolutely worthy of the award.
Yeah, he's not a bad songwriter either. You know, he's not just like a pop artist. He actually puts lots of, I'm sure, tons of time into every song he writes, and every song has a moral and a story, you know.
So I don't know the exact stipulations of the Nobel Prize. I don't know if you have to be alive to receive it. I think you might have to be. So I think that if, you know, based on a lot of what you and Mr. Glover have said, but I think you can make a really powerful argument that Pete Seeger probably deserves the Nobel Prize in literature as sort of predating and sort of lasting longer, maybe being a little bit more relevant than Bob Dylan. And I think Pete Seeger died earlier this year. So that's interesting. And then secondly, what Mr. Glover said about, you know, writing a song and writing music is just as complicated and time-consuming as writing a book or a novel. I have seen a lot of people who would call themselves authors being very critical of Dylan because his songs incorporate elements that other people have produced. And so in the field of fiction, literature, there is this sense of plagiarism and, ownership of ideas. And so that's an interesting sort of angle on Dylan. If Dylan's music takes themes or ideas from music of the time period or before, is he getting credit for information, ideas, concepts, topics that he didn't originate?
Yes and no. I don't know. Well, he's still making his own thing, though. He's not blatantly plagiarizing someone. He's, remastering something to his own art form,
I wonder is there a separate, does poetry fall into literature? Mr. Glover, do you know? Does poetry?
Poets have probably won the literature prize.
Yes.
So, it seems even more so that a musician and his music or her music you could very easily describe them as a poet, right?
Right. Well, no, songs are poems with more.
Right, with music attached, right?
With music, yeah.
So, I'm not against Bob Dylan getting, I don't know what my position is, but I've just seen it's been a point of discussion, and I'm very curious, like what students think about. It seems like very 21st century to finally give a Nobel Prize to a musician.
I think it's really cool. I think it's definitely, when I heard about it, I thought that was awesome. I wasn't like, oh, I was like, that's really good for him,
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Bob Dylan fan, but I definitely appreciate what he's done for music, and I think it's time that we start looking at artists in this category, and hopefully this will just start a trend.
Do you ever think that they would make a separate category for musicians?
What are the categories for the Nobel Prizes?
Well, I know that Mr. Glover has a doctorate in Nobel studies.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, there's science and there's peace.
Right, there is peace.
Okay, so physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, peace, and economic sciences.
Okay.
So
See, there's
just
no
literature.
There's no art category.
No, that surprises me.
Yeah.
And that way, but then do the musicians go into the literature category? Do they go with the visual artists and other types of artists? It's interesting that physics and chemistry are separate. There's not a prize for science, so they've distinguished that.
Right.
Why not also distinguish other categories?
Yeah, and I think the chemistry and physics are kind of broad, because I know the most recent, I might be wrong on this, I think the chemistry winner was someone who was working on like nanobot technology. And it's kind of chemistry, but it's like mini robots.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So it's like a technology prize.
Right. I don't know, but I'm not sure.